Okay, hello everyone. My name's Liam and I'm one of the digital marketers here at Coast Digital, and I specialise in organic search and social marketing. And today we're going to be looking at social evolution. So looking in more detail at what we're going to be covering today, and we're going to be observing recent changes in social media marketing, from user engagement right through to ad targeting capabilities. And the idea is this webinar will review how social platforms have progressed and improved their features for marketers, along with where they have actually failed and the causing of these failings. So there's sort of three key areas we're going to be looking at. The first one is social trends in 2018. Then and now, and how social platforms have evolved in the past 4 years. And then finally, we're going to be looking at the rise of virtual assistants and how actually they're going to affect social and digital marketing in the next few years. Okay, so let's kick off then with a recent Facebook conference where a journalist actually spoke to Mark Zuckerberg and asked him a question, and she actually asked him why Facebook's newsfeed was so essential to Facebook's success. And he came back with the following response, which was: a squirrel dying in front of your house may be more relevant to your interests right now than people dying in Africa. And let's have a look at what he meant when he said that. So if we take an example of Facebook's newsfeed here, and we take something quite diverse like politics, so we can see here we've got liberal politics or liberal posts and conservative posts on here. And let's say, for argument's sake, we're more interested in the liberal content, and let's say we like that content, we comment on it, we're sharing it, lots of engagement with that content, without actually any direct input from us to Facebook, telling Facebook this. They learn from this behaviour, they decide to remove the content that we're not engaging with, that conservative content, and actually replace it with more liberal content that they know from our behaviour we are interested in. And in fact, it's not just Facebook doing this either. In fact, now, before you even type anything into the search box in Google now, there are more than 57 different signals which dictate how the results are going to look when they come up after a search. Everything from the device you're using. Are you on a mobile phone? Are you on a tablet? Are you on a work computer? Are you home? Again, where are you sitting? Are you on the train? Are you at a conference? All these different things. All these different factors are going to be taken into account when making a Google search now. So, to show an example of how this actually works, what we've done is done a sort of generic search, in this case for men's shirts. So I've done one on my own personal Google profile. I've made this search sitting at my desktop PC here in the office, and then I've asked one of my colleagues to do the same, and search for exactly the same phrase sitting from their desktop. They sit about 5 feet away from me. And obviously, as you can imagine, we're both searching similar things, working on similar projects on a daily basis. So in theory, the results really shouldn't be that different. However, if we start to compare them with one another, we can see just for a sort of straightforward search like this, we can see straight away position 2 is different on my own search to my colleagues, where that result is showing further down the page. And then we've got other searches on there, for example. In this case, M&M Direct, that are shown in different positions. And then, even then, we can see that there are actually 2 results that don't appear on one another. One from Boohoo.com and another one from Amazon. We can see that actually these don't appear at all on one another's first page of results on there. So we can see that already the results are quite different from 2 people sitting opposite each other. You can imagine how different they would potentially be from 2 people on opposite ends of the country or even internationally on there. So Eric Schmidt, who was a co-founder of Google, on the same sort of topic said that it would be very hard for people to watch or consume something that has not in some sense been tailored for them. And although we can see, as we just looked at, this is beginning to happen on Google, on YouTube, this is very much already the case. And if we start to look at, again, a YouTube example, so here we're looking at a video of The Chase, which is an ITV game show on here. As is likely to see, and probably, as expected, a lot of the results after viewing the video are actually for other clips from the same game show or similar game shows, or to do with the host and various different things that are relevant to that video we've just watched. However, there are two videos here that kind of break the mold slightly and aren't necessarily relevant at all to the video we've just watched. But as you can see, just underneath in a smaller font, it does say recommended for you, and they're very much tailored for that individual and based on that individual's interests. And this is, very much just the start. We're going to start to see more and more of this, where potentially it will get to the point where we'll flip sides really, and the majority of the videos will be tailored to the individual, and you perhaps only see a couple there that will actually be relevant to that particular video. And again, so looking at sort of Netflix, LoveFilm, Now TV, all these various different streaming sites, if anyone's ever used those before, becoming very popular now, what you find is they also have algorithms that will display results based on user behavior. So, for example, if we're a big fan of, say, superhero films, we like all the Marvel films, and then actually what we'll find is on something like Netflix, you'll find that you'll get recommended those sort of films, but not only that, you might find that the opening credits have been cut automatically when you go to watch it, so it's an easier viewing process for the user. You might also find that actually it streams faster because it's starting to buffer in the background, expecting you to watch that particular film or television program on there, as opposed to if you were to sort of make a big change and go to something like Titanic, for example. So what we want to look at really, bringing it back to us, bringing it back to the marketing aspect, is look at how this is affecting our users, our target audience on there, and what it's actually doing to them and the content we deliver. So actually, all these different platforms, Facebook, Netflix, Google+, Twitter, YouTube, all these various different ones, what they're actually doing is almost creating a filter around our users, around our customers, and with all the different content that's out there online now, what that filter is doing is only allowing through what they deem relevant to that particular user's interest. And really, as businesses, we need to ensure that our content is within that filter, that our content is deemed relevant for our target audience. And that's going to be essential for the future, because that is, it's very much to the extent now where there's so much content online, we need to make sure we're inside that filter. Okay then, so looking at social evolution now, looking at how the platforms have progressed on each of them. And first of all, we're going to kick off with the most popular social networking websites. And this is taken from Q4 of last year. So the first one on here, I'm sure you've already started to pick up some of them with the particular colors on there, but the first one, LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, 106 million active users in Q4 of last year. And then we have Pinterest. Interestingly, Pinterest has now obviously overtaken LinkedIn there. And actually in 2014, Pinterest grew from only 70 million users. So 4 years they've started to pick up there. Also their net worth has actually grown from $5 billion in 2014 to 11 billion at the end of last year. The next one, Snapchat. So we can see here, again, 300 million users there at the end of last year, end of 2017. And again, they grew from 26 million users in 2014. And their own net worth has grown very impressively from $1.7 billion in 2014 to 20 billion at the end of last year. Okay, and then the other ones we've got on there, slightly more familiar. So Twitter, 317 million active users at the end of last year. Tumblr, 550 million. Instagram, 600 million, which is obviously now a Facebook product, Instagram, and as are the next three. So we've got Facebook Messenger, 1 billion active users, along with WhatsApp, a recent Facebook purchase of 1 billion active users. And then finally, as I'm sure everyone all predicted, Facebook at the top there, 1.87 billion active users at the end of 2017. Okay, so looking at global social media now, and actually how many users there are globally for social media. And at the moment that figure is approximately 2.8 billion. And in fact, if we look with a global population of approximately 7.5 billion, this actually represents a penetration rate of around 37%, which is massive. And in fact, even if we look further into this figure could even be higher if you were to omit children, as well as adults that are unable to access the internet. That figure is going to be much, much higher. So it's definitely long gone are the days where any business feels as though they can ignore social, really. Okay, so looking at new social media users now, and actually we found last year we have more than 482 million people registering a social media account, which is a significant increase of more than 20% compared to the year previous. So massive growth there, something still to keep an eye on. And then looking at the growth regionally as well, and not necessarily just social media globally. So if we break it down regionally, perhaps unsurprisingly, social media is yet to gain significant traction in Africa. More than 16% of the world's population actually live on the continent of Africa, yet in fact only 6% of the global social media users actually reside there. And it's an even bleaker picture in South Asia, with 24% of the global population. They only make up just 9% of the world's social media base. East Asia, on the other hand, has a thriving social media presence. So 33% of the world's social media users actually live in the region, despite only having 22% of the global population there, which is massive. Okay, so looking at actually what's happened with each of the individual platforms now, some of the core ones, and looking at sort of the acquisitions that have been made so far with these. So Twitter, looking at first. So the big one with Twitter in 2011, they actually acquired TweetDeck for 40 million. TweetDeck was a tool that allowed you to set up a dashboard for Twitter so that you can monitor multiple keywords on Twitter at one time, have access to numerous accounts, schedule tweets, things like that. There were various different tools out there that could do something similar, and it was actually TweetDeck, a UK company, that was the one acquired by Twitter. And still accessible if you go to tweetdeck.twitter.com. You can still use that tool on there and all the features it had, free as part of your Twitter account on there. The next one was Vine. Interestingly, Vine actually launched in 2013 and was acquired the same year by Twitter for 30 million. And then finally, Periscope was the other big one, and again that launched and was acquired the same year by Twitter for 100 million. Looking at Facebook, So Facebook's only sort of made two big acquisitions in this area. So the first one, 2012, they actually acquired Instagram for $1 billion. Interestingly, today, in recent research, we actually found that 32% of teenagers now consider Instagram to be the most important social network. So it was definitely a worthwhile acquisition by Facebook, and the work they've done with it has definitely contributed to that. The next one, 2014, was WhatsApp, and that was actually acquired for $19 billion at that point. And then finally on this section, looking at Microsoft. So a sort of big social acquisition by Microsoft, as some of you may be familiar with, was in 2016 when they acquired LinkedIn for $26.2 billion. And actually it valued LinkedIn at about 91 times its own earnings, at about 7% of Microsoft's own market cap. So it was a very bold acquisition at the time, and in fact, it works out actually that Microsoft paid more than $60 for each registered LinkedIn user at that time. Okay, so looking at then and now, and comparing the past 4 years of social and how they've improved. So Facebook to begin with, and looking at in 2014, the value of Facebook was $190 billion. And then actually looking at the breakdown of users, so Facebook is certainly the dominant player there with 1.7 billion. Instagram, only 200 million users, and WhatsApp with 600 million. Now, if we actually look at 2018, the values obviously shot up to $314.8 billion US dollars. The big thing with the users and how that breaks down is in fact Facebook's growth there has been fairly modest in comparison to the growth of WhatsApp and actually Instagram there, which has grown massively. WhatsApp now 1 billion and Instagram 500 million. Okay, and then Twitter. So Twitter's user base 271 million with a value of 49 million on there. And their value has absolutely shot up to 32.9 billion, and we'll look at the breakdown of that with regards to ad revenue and so on in a moment in the next section. But actually look at the growth of the user base there. So it's grown in 4 years to 317 million active users on there. Okay, and then finally LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, value of 75 million initially in 2014, and they had 187 million active users. And if we look at that in 4 years' time, so 2018 now, so their value is 15.8 billion now. So they've certainly been growth since 2014, but considering Microsoft paid 26.2 billion in 2016, it actually shows that the value of the platform is 40% less than it was at the time. And the active users has grown, so 467 million active users. Okay, so looking at advertising revenue in specifically now. So if we look in 2014 advertising revenue, we can see that Facebook's dominating there, 2.68 billion, and we've got Twitter, 1.26 billion, Instagram, which at that point had no advertising capabilities on there, and then finally LinkedIn, so 454 million on there. And then if we fast forward now and look at it at the beginning of this year, so we've got Facebook, which has jumped up massively, 17.8 billion now. It's growth in the last 4 years. So Twitter, 3.93 billion. Instagram, absolutely massive, 6.84 billion. And in fact, that figure has actually 88% increase from the year previous. with regard to advertising revenue. So certainly speeding ahead there. And then we've got finally LinkedIn at 700 million from advertising revenue. Okay, so looking at social trends now in 2018. So the first one to look at is basically look at search for social and looking at how they're being used for discovery. And what we actually found was that a recent report by Global Web Index actually found that 40% of 16 to 24-year-olds are using social media to research products. So, you know, there's definitely some evidence to support that social is certainly a key area for discovering new products, new services, and things like that. And in fact, one of the things we have found is that Facebook have made significant changes to their search function. And the reason being is before you could only necessarily use it for searching for individuals or searching for a brand, whereas now actually, as we can see in the example on the screen, if you were to type in a brand, it comes up with other options on there, such as, you know, trainers, shoes, you know, football kits, things like that. So you can actually start to use it for discovery for those areas. And in fact, furthermore, data has been released in the last year that indicated that 1 in 2 Instagram users are actually using social media for product research. So it's definitely something that people are beginning to become more accustomed to, feel more comfortable with using as a discovery tool. Okay, so that leads us nicely on to social commerce and how that's actually showing promise. So social commerce is a difficult one, really, and I guess internationally we're quite split with that. With regard to in the West, people are still slightly sceptical about using social media as the direct platform to purchase products from. Now, Facebook already has the marketplace feature up there, where friends can sell to one another, or you can have groups, local groups, people selling things and indirectly. However, it's not got to the stage where you're taking that payment directly through the platform. However, on the flip side, it's actually got to the stage where Asian consumers are extremely confident online, and some are even happy to do their entire banking on Facebook alone. And the thing is, in the West, we're still waiting to basically warm to e-commerce on social media. And I guess it's safe to say the jury's very much still out on this one. However, as obviously social media users and the other audiences are sort of growing up with it and becoming more trusting of it, it's something that's certainly not going to be going away and is only going to progress in the future. Okay, and then the next trend to look at is dark social, and why it's critical for us to understand. So, for those of you who haven't heard of dark social, it basically refers to the social sharing of content via private channels such as messaging apps, and you know, WhatsApp, for example, is one of them. Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, all these kind of things where they're very much private conversations in there, where friends are sending links to particular pieces of content and things like that. The rise of private messaging and private groups in the past 5 years has been phenomenal. In 2015, actually, the number of people using messaging apps actually surpassed those using social networks. So it's definitely something we need to look into a bit more. One of the big things you might find is if you're using Google Analytics for your website, you'll find that your direct traffic may have jumped up quite a lot on there. And actually, a lot of that can be attributed to this dark social, where the way Google Analytics reads it is as if a user has put in the direct link in their search bar, where in fact they've just clicked the link that someone shared with them on one of these platforms. So looking at it in more detail, actually, in mid-2016, it was revealed that 77% of content is actually shared on dark social versus just 23% on public social networks. And now actually looking at these stats for the end of last year, we can see that that's even grown further now. It's now 87%, so it's grown by 10% in the year. So identifying dark social traffic is an obvious focus for analysts, but it's certainly not an easy problem for us to fix on there. So it's something that a lot of the platforms are looking further into at the moment and seeing how they can correctly attribute social media as a source for leads and conversions. And finally, from this section, video and how video is actually igniting social advertising. So this is already in full swing, I guess. So brands will seek to produce video content that users will engage with rather than just advertising at them through video. So, the next evolution is going to be more about creating interactive video formats that go beyond straight visual advertising, basically. So it's all about engagement, not necessarily just passive viewing. One of the ways we can see this is how Facebook's made the move to sort of cash in with this and give publishers the opportunity to insert sponsored content midway through their videos at the moment. The other thing is Facebook Canvas, their ad format. We can see an example of this now on your screen, actually where the ad goes directly through to a piece of content that is hosted by Facebook. So when the user clicks it, if they're on a mobile device, the loading speed is massively improved compared to if you were to host this on your own website, almost instant. And you can click on that. You can design that exactly how you like to scroll through, be very creative with it. And that basically launched the beginning of 2016, that feature. And the idea is, they load up to 10 times faster than the standard mobile web, basically. So very much a worthwhile tool to use as part of the ad platform. Okay, so moving on to our final section then, which is the rise of virtual assistants. And I guess, it's important to recognise that all of these, functionalities that virtual assistants provide are not all connected. So they all serve very different purposes and utilise totally different systems. But actually these systems, what they're actually doing is training users to change their expectations on search and discovery. So from this, we're learning to expect these systems to know us, to learn our behaviours and needs, and to provide relevant recommendations with less manual input at each turn. And that shift is a significant change in search behaviour, and just the simple fact that it's going to have major implications for marketers like us moving forward. And to look at the first example of this, so we've got the Google Assist on there, so Google Now, and then actually how Google's even developing other tools now. So there's another tool called Google Hello, which we'll look at in just a moment. So in this example, say using text messages on here from one to another. Someone's asked the question, can you get milk tomorrow night? And straight away, Google's picked up on that as a request and given the opportunity to set an event reminder. Once that's clicked on there, we can see it's already picked up that you said tomorrow night, so it's already set the date tomorrow at 8 o'clock and provided that as an option on there. So it's intelligent enough to know that it was a request and actually when that request was made as well. And then looking at Google Hello, which is a new tool. So the Hello messaging app, basically the idea is that you can have multiple people within one conversation on there and actually use Google as part of the group on there. And so in this example on screen at the moment, there's multiple people having a discussion, and someone's at Google, what's the weather like today? And we can see the response from Google showing on there. There's other examples as well of people discussing where they should go as a group to eat, perhaps. And they can ask Google, you know, local restaurants close by, things like that, and they're able to find out where the nearest sushi bars are, for example, things like that. And I guess these additional functionalities really do make sense because, you know, they learn more about our individual likes and interests, and then they get a real good context for what we're likely go searching for in the future, and learn from our behaviour as to what they should deliver to these people. And given the amount of collective insight and knowledge these systems now have, there could become a time where they'll even reliably be able to recommend what you need before you even know you need it. Okay, another example as well. So again, same group on here. Again, people discussing on there, showing videos of making sushi. So that one I mentioned previously was showing restaurants nearby. So the idea is that, again, how this becomes more relevant from a organic search perspective as well. And the big thing from this is not only the fact that, I guess, people are going to be changing the language they're using, they're going to be more comfortable with, you know, asking longer questions on there, but also with voice. People, you know, certainly change the way they speak, and as a result, these systems are going to be looking at delivering different results, different relevant results. The other big thing on here as well is the simple fact that of the number of results that are being delivered on here, if people are asking for sushi restaurants nearby or a video or something like that, we can see that it's sort of one main result that's being shown there. So it's very important for us to ensure that the content we're delivering is deemed relevant by these platforms so that we do get the visibility we desire from them. And the next big thing on there is actually the virtual assistant platform. So I guess the big one, Amazon Echo, Google Home, various others that are coming out now. And the idea, I guess, with how Google have actually made a statement late last year that actually now more than 20% of all mobile search queries come from voice search, which is projected to rise to at least 50% by the end of this decade. And while the biggest percentage of voice search users are teens at the moment, it signals a clear behavioural evolution. So obviously, for the majority of us, devices like this are a novelty and something new in our household. But if you imagine people growing up with these, you know, these are as common as a mobile phone or anything else now. It's going to be very comfortable with using voice search and being able to use it for discovery and use all the additional features on there. So yeah, these trends are largely driven by assistant requests, and it's likely to only increase as devices like these become more commonplace. And in fact, more than 5 million Amazon Echo units have now been sold, and 3.5 million Google Home units have now been activated. And those numbers are expected to increase to around 24 million, in fact, by the end of this month, which is incredible. So, again, the way these are going is certainly something we need to ensure that we're prepared to market for on there. Okay. So moving on now, looking actually at the future. So what do we see for the future of social evolution? How's it going to be changing on there? So Tools are being developed at the moment to streamline the buying process, to make it more immediate, easier for users to simply place an order for something while it's at the front of your mind, and even have, as we've said previously, have systems that detect needs and order on your behalf before you even realise you do need it. And with that new world will come a new range of marketing and outreach opportunities. Some will see a significant benefit from this, especially those that get in early and work with these new processes, and in fact others will likely lose out as a result of that. It's worth paying attention as these elements evolve to ensure that your business is at the forefront. And as we said before, such developments have the potential to change search and discovery as we know it. We're still in the early stages of this. In fact, Facebook's only testing out these tools, and Google Assistant is still ironing out the kinks. For example, again, as we've said, we showed you their recent Google Hello tool. They actually had an error which made elements of Google's search history accessible to others using a chat thread, so your friends could see what you're searching for on there. So, there's certainly still improvements to be made, but it's important to consider the wider implications of the new behaviours being learned and how that's going to change the marketing process for us. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So I hope you all found that rather useful on there. So we've now got some time for some questions on there. So we'll try and get around to some of the questions as you send them in now, and we'll have a look through. However, I'll be happy to chat about any challenges or social media best practice or anything like that. If you'd like to drop us an email, and we'll come back to you. Okay, so just look at the questions now. Someone said here, what do we think the best social platform is for marketing on? And again, this is very much dependent on the business and actually how we target this. So I guess originally, when social media was a new sort of a new marketing channel, each platform was very clear on the audience they had with regard to LinkedIn being very much B2B, and then you have sort of Twitter and Facebook and things like that being more for the consumer audience, a bit more light-hearted. However, with the different capabilities on each of the platforms, I don't think it's a case of just one. I think it's being clever with how you use them. So, for example, Facebook Pixel allows you to now retarget users. So if you apply Facebook Pixel tracking on your website, even if you're, for example, a B2B business, those individuals still use Facebook. And what you can do is apply that pixel and then set up a custom target audience on Facebook through their Facebook advertising platform, and actually set it to only target people who have perhaps visited your website, signed up for example, a webinar or another particular piece of content, visited a certain aspect of your website. And you can just target this audience on there. So, in fact, I think that's removed a lot of the boundaries now, and actually all social media platforms are quite equal on how you could market on them. There's no one that's better than the other. It is simply how you use the tools they allow make available now. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the other questions on here. One moment. Okay, so we've got one here. Someone's asked, how long before virtual assistants like Amazon Echo and Google Home start allowing promoted content and adverts? And in fact, there's already recent reports this month that Amazon is currently in discussions with massive companies that are looking to promote their goods and their products and things like that using Amazon Echo. So one example of that is Procter & Gamble are actually in talks at the moment for advertising deals, which allow them to, Alexa basically to suggest their products when you go to request something on there. So an example, if you ask Alexa at the moment how to remove a stain on there, actually it will recommend a Procter & Gamble product. And again, this is without anything sponsored so far. So it's a bit unclear how Amazon's planning to identify promoted responses on Alexa, if they are at all, or if they'll actually just keep it as it is and just have that as the top recommendation on there, which would be interesting to see in the future. But yes, certainly the answer to that question is it's already happening, and over the next couple of months we're going to see that far more frequently on those different platforms. Okay, so we've got time for just one more question on here, and then any of the other questions, what I'll do is go away and then come back to you after the webinar with a response, so don't worry if it hasn't been answered. So the final question on here, someone has asked how much more important is video going to be in the future? So I guess it shouldn't come as a shock here, but video is obviously going to continue to grow as the predominant medium across social and digital overall. And looking at some predictions, in fact, it was Mark Zuckerberg that estimated that 90% of Facebook's content is going to be video-based by the end of this year. And in fact, that's been supported by the launch of Facebook Watch and how successful other tools like Facebook Live already are on the platform. But either way, it's going to become the main way users prefer to consume content, especially on mobile as well. And in fact, that's something we definitely, as marketers, we need to consider. And according to another report recently, mobile's now overtaken the primary way to access social media. So brands need to work out how they can use a variety of different video formats effectively as part of their content marketing plans. So very important is the simple answer really, and it's definitely something that brands are going to need to find a way to produce that content and use it in their future marketing campaigns. Okay, so as I said previously, even if you haven't had a chance to get your question in there, then I'd be happy to chat about any challenges or issues that you're having or anything like that. And we hold various different social media workshops and training sessions and things like that. So please do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to discuss further. Thank you very much, everyone.